We have almost arrived. We are on the precipice of football. That's what Big Ten Media Days signal. Let's look back at a few of the biggest moments from the offseason, but more importantly, Rajiv, let's look forward. It's almost football season. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Over there is our good friend, Rajiv. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We're talking Big Ten Media Days. The players going, a couple other players we would have loved to have seen there, some other players on the roster that we think would be really interesting in that setting. Plus, we were looking back at the offseason because we're kind of at this precipice of the new year starting. What were the biggest storylines from the offseason? And Indiana scheduling, a stroke of genius or a bit of cowardice? We're going to talk about that on both ends. But first, let us talk about Big Ten Media Days. Rajiv, my friend, my good friend, we had originally planned to do this together. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but fortunately, you can make it. I want to start with the three players going. You have Billy Edwards, you have Rico Hallman, you have Jake Renfro. Thoughts on that trio representing the Badgers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good trio overall. First of all, very excited about it. Luckily, it's 5 miles away from me. It's probably about 1,500 miles away from you. So I totally get that. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I mean, first of all, Billy Edwards at the top of the list. Like, I feel like he has to be here. If you're going to be out, come be the quarterback of this team, take over in your last year of college football, you got to be the leader and you got to speak for the team. And there's so many changes that are expected from this offense and from the quarterback play. He's got to be out here representing. I'm very excited to talk to him and interview him a little bit tomorrow. And Jake Renfro, like, yeah, he's the leader of the line, the center. I think you could have had someone else potentially, but ultimately, like, I think that's okay. I feel like is kind of poised for not really a comeback season, but he's had injury issues his whole career. And I think if he can come back and just play 12 games and really be that guy, I think it sets up nicely. And you got to have a defensive guy. Rico Hallman, I mean, obviously he's kind of one of the stars of our defense. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And also kind of hey, I had 2 years ago, people were talking about me as one of the best cornerbacks in the country. And then last year kind of fell off a little bit, got a little more of a redemption story. So I think there's a lot of good storylines with these three guys, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say tomorrow.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a really strong group. Many years ago, Michigan State went to Media Days, and I'm trying to remember who it was, but their quarterback didn't go. And I remember talking to my really good friend who worked at ESPN at the time. This is way before. This is BR, before Rajiv. But I remember was both saying, God, that's a bad sign. Like, if your quarterback doesn't go to Media Days, I almost don't care if he's a transfer. He's been here for 4 months. That, to me, that's a bad sign. You have to have a quarterback leader. Everything we've heard about Billy Edwards, forget the arm and some of the size. Everything we've heard is intangibles, leadership. Check. Former teammates talk about this. So I think him being there is a great sign for the Badgers. You've got to have a quarterback go. Rico's to me, he's an absolute obvious decision. He's been in the program for a long time. He's a great guy. I've had a chance to talk to him. He does things the right way. Renfro, you're right. Maybe it could have been a Malman. You know, if you're looking at an offensive lineman, a guy who's been here for longer than Jake Renfro, I think that's interesting. But Renfro's also the center. He's battled injuries. He's been here for several years. He's got a connection to Luke Fickell that extends past Wisconsin. So all that makes sense too. I think it's fine. I think this group makes sense. They're well-spoken. It's a really good group. I do want to ask you, though, not to take obviously away from any of these players that are going, but if you had to, let's say Media Days was 6 players and you could pick 3 more guys from this roster that you're like, I think they deserve it. I would love to talk to them at Media Days. Who would those 3 guys be?
First and foremost on that list for me is Vinny Anthony. Top of the list. Like, that dude his career has taken off, and he single-handedly kept us afloat in some situations last year. Had a great year. I feel like deserves some of that. There's a recognition that comes with going to Big Ten Media Days, right? Like, you're out there at the national stage, you're out there with a lot of different, media outlets from different parts of the Midwest and the country. And I think that it's like he really kind of deserves that coming out party. So I would like to see him there for sure. He's the top of my list.
So let's combine forces there. I have Vinny Anthony on my list too. All the things you said, but also this is a guy that, again, spans generations at Wisconsin, like came in under the previous coaching staff, is here for this one, and has succeeded just by continually stacking success, which is the Wisconsin way. Like the Wisconsin way is being that 3-star guy who comes in, busts his complete butt off, and becomes a stud, becomes a total stud. Because that's what Vinny Anthony is. He's a stud, and he's a stud that people don't put enough name recognition on nationally, which is why I would love for him to have had that chance, because it would have got his name out there more, and I think he deserves it. So I'm right there with you on Vinny Anthony. My next one is Aaron Witt. Just I understand why, like, you need to be, I get you need to be more of a performer to go to Big Ten Media Days, but there's also just like a cultural component of it. Like, who represents Wisconsin? Well, it's the guy who just doesn't give up, right? It's the guy who, it doesn't matter how much you throw at him, he just keeps punching back at the wall. And that is Aaron Witt in a nutshell. Like, he has gone injury after injury to a point where most people would have given up. They would have thrown in the towel. It would have been really cool to see him in like an opportunity like this, just to kind of talk about his journey through Wisconsin and the perseverance there. That's
a good shout. I'm going to stay along the same lines as that. Like, my next guy is a guy that I feel like has been a player for a while, never had the issues that Aaron Witt had, but it's just that grinding sort of Wisconsin player. And, you hear me talk about him a lot, Preston Zachman. I feel like, he's his last year. Like, I also want him to get a little bit of limelight and just kind of be out here like, yeah, I'm the safety now. Yes, I've been in Hunter Wohler's shadow for a while, but dude, he's been a very solid, very productive player, low missed tackle percentage, high tackle percentage. Like, he's a good player, and I feel like he doesn't get enough recognition. And I try to give it to him as much as I can, because how I feel about it. But I hope that I would like to see it here.
Yeah, Zachman's a great call out. By the way, in the chat, we got Will, Dominic, Phil, John. I know this is going late. Sean Coleman's in there, says, finally made it to a live stream. What's up, Sean? We got also Dominic in there, said, Ryan, I met Billy over the weekend. Super chill dude. That's our quarterback one. Let's go, Dominic.
Yeah, Dominic was commented on our show this past weekend and said a similar thing, and I think a little more to it. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Thanks for sharing, Dominic.
So my third one, I went Daryl Peterson. It's similar to Aaron Witt for me. It's just a guy who could have easily transferred. He could have easily left and said, no, I was recruited to a different system, but he stayed. He put on weight. He busted his butt. I've had a chance to talk to him as well. He's a Badger through and through. Like, he's a culture guy. He's been here a long time. He's going to play a lot this year. He's bigger. I think Daryl Peterson, just from speaking to him, would have represented himself in this program really, really well in this particular setting.
He was my honorable mention. I also agree. I think, he's a guy that, as much as people tend to be critical of his game at times, I think that he works his butt off, and I'm never going to deny that. Like, every year you hear him, yeah, he's working on practice. Like, he's doing it. He's earning, he keeps his spot every year, and you got to give him credit for that. So I hear that. I'm going with the guy who's not in his last year of eligibility, but it's Christian Allegro, just because I think he is the next sort of future star. He's in his third year, and I think that this year is going to be, in my opinion, his kind of coming out party to the national stage, all conference. I absolutely expect him to hit that. And so I want him to kind of, again, get that recognition and kind of put his name out there as what I think will be the next great Wisconsin linebacker.
Yeah, we could use one. He checks a lot of the boxes that we're looking for. So he's another really good one for sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about, I think I'm going to audible, Rajiv. We were going to go into 3 big takeaways from the offseason, but let's talk about Indiana and their scheduling. Right. Let's talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Gametime. Listen, I appreciate everybody in this channel so much, in this community we built. I wish we could all do more things in life. I think we should all strive to do a few more things in life, get to more places, see more things, experience more events, and just live a little bit more. It's really easy to get stuck into your day-to-day grind. Let's go out and catch more games. Let's go out and catch the theater, concerts, musicals, whatever it is. You can do all that on Gametime, and it is the easiest way to get tickets. You can get tickets from your phone on the way to the stadium. I've done that. Gets emailed into your phone. It's fast. It's easy. You get pictures of the seats before you sit down. Let's do more things in life, and let's do them together. And let's do them for cheaper, because you can do all of that over on Gametime. It is an incredible ticket platform. It's something I use. It's something I'll continue to use. Listen, you want to come to our lockdown event in Iowa this year, or not in Iowa, in Madison, when Iowa's coming to Madison. I'm probably going to use Gametime to get those tickets, because why wouldn't I? Why would I cause myself more stress? Right now, take the tickets out of buying, or take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to get $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. For $20 off, download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Rajiv, I'm going to let you kick this one off. You and I were going back and forth on this a little bit. Indiana made some news, canceled a home and home against Virginia, took a shot against the SEC today. Coach Signetti took a shot against the SEC saying, we're just scheduling like they are. They play nobody out of conference. Absolutely nobody. What are your thoughts here?
I'm disgusted by this, and I've got a lot to say about it. Okay, first of all, and I'm going to start my preface this by saying you've heard me talk about Indiana before. Like, I'm annoyed. Jealous is definitely part of it. Like, they were in the first 12-team college football playoff. That's awesome. I would have loved for that to be us, considering we would have been in that playoff countless times in the past 10 to 15 years, but whatever. So ultimately, like, I get a little bit sort of jaded by the fact that their fan base is acting like it's like they're now all of a sudden the next great Big Ten team. Calm down. You've had one good season. Here's my issue with the scheduling. If you want to say going forward that you don't want to schedule tough opponents because you're in a 9-game conference slate with a really tough league, I can hear that argument. I cannot and will not hear this nonsense about going and canceling games that have already been scheduled. Really? Like, can you say soft any faster? Like, just no, there's no reason for that. Hey, you scheduled that team, go play that team. We played Alabama last year. We're playing Alabama this year. We're playing Notre Dame the next 2 years. We're playing Pittsburgh. Like, I understand that Indiana has the thing, but if you're going to be a big boy in college football, then act like a big boy in college football. And you want to criticize the SEC, like I'm all about criticizing the SEC. Okay, but yes, as the SEC has an FCS opponent, usually the second to last week of the season before the rivalry game. Okay, but those guys also play Big Ten teams all the time. They're constantly playing teams in the ACC and the Pac-12. They might only have one on their schedule, but they almost always have one, i.e. what Alabama's doing. You see games constantly between Texas and OSU, LSU, Georgia. They play those big games. So you can't say that the SEC doesn't play those games. They have an FCS. They have an 8-game conference slate. That's fine, and that's something to knock them for. But Indiana is eliminating any possibility of playing any non-con opponent with a pulse. Stop it. Act like a big boy program and don't cancel on games. That's honestly a very crappy move. That's all I'll say.
That's well said. No, dude, that's well said. Listen, P says, get it, Rajiv. On Culture, it says, you get after Rajiv. He also says that's a total B move. Pardon my
French.
That's
what I want to say. It is. Come on, man. Don't cancel the games.
Dominic says, listen, you're also canceling Virginia. Not exactly the greatest Power 4 school. Yeah,
there was another one too. It wasn't just Virginia. I can't remember that. There was another Power 4 school that they canceled on.
Yeah. So listen, hear all that. Let me provide where I'm at, because you and I are in different spots in here. And I actually think when I've talked to more people, I think I'm on an island here, which is fine. Like, that's okay. There's no reward for being brave in college football. Like, it's great. Like, get a badge of honor, go play a tough out-of-conference schedule. How does that help you? How did it help Wisconsin to get beat up by Alabama? How would it help them this year if they get beat up by Alabama? Do you get like a Cub Scouts badge for being brave in out-of-conference scheduling? No, the committee rewards win-loss. It doesn't really reward strength of schedule. So until it gets to that point, why would you handicap yourself to play tougher teams? What's the goal? What's the goal in college football? What is it? Is it to get the badge for toughest strength of schedule? Or is it to get, of course, Sonny's with you. You two are boys.
Let's go, Sonny.
I love Sonny too. But what is, honestly, let's be honest though. What is the goal? Is it to get to the playoffs? Because the easiest way to get to the playoffs is to have the best win-loss record. That's it. And if you lose out of conference, nobody gives a crap. Typically, the committee has shown this. They don't care that much who you play. They want a shiny win and loss record. And you and I both know if you play in the Big Ten, it doesn't matter what you do in out of conference. If you finish with 10 wins, you're going to the playoffs. So I guess my biggest point is, until there's consistency in how teams schedule, if every team said, we're going to schedule a tough out of conference game, I'm 100% for it. But that's not what happens. So why would you make it harder for yourself, especially if you're in Indiana that doesn't have the talent of the Blue Bloods? I think it's smart. Is it soft? Yes. But I think it's also smart.
So very well said. And I totally understand the argument. I'm going to push back on one particular point. I don't think it's necessarily easier to get to the playoffs by doing this. Like, let's go back and look at the last 10 national champions. Let's go back and look at the last 20 teams that made the college football playoff, whether it's last year or the previous years. Yes, Indiana not now, but a lot of those teams, and I would say most of them had a tough game on their schedule, a tough game in their non-con, because SEC schools do that every year, or most of them at least. Now, well, like I understand about that, but the thing is, now with 12 teams, you are comparing a lot more teams, like teams that are 20th and 15th and the final standings are kind of in that discussion. And you're splitting hairs there. So there is going to come a time where that is going to bite them in the ass. Like, you're not just going to get to play that schedule. You're going to have to go up against a resume that maybe does have one more loss, but actually had those opponents and played those games. And that is going to be the difference in getting into that college football playoff. Frankly, I want to be more prepared for the Big Ten season, and I'm okay having a test early. I understand that's a potential loss, but it's also a potential win that is also a potential catalyst and catapult for your season, right? You get one of those non-con wins. What does that do for you going into your conference slate? And how much better does that make you look to the committee? I do hear your argument, though. I understand it's a win-loss thing, but I've always thought in college football, and it stayed pretty consistent, your conference record really is the first driver of that. A lot of teams, they do factor in the fact that you've got an incredibly unbalanced non-con schedule across the country. They have to factor that into the discussion.
Yeah, Rick, welcome to the show. Late on the East Coast. I used to live out there. I get it. Yeah, dude, I hear you. Like, again, I hear all of that. It just, to me, feels like there's an element of bravado there. There's an element of, we're going to do it tougher because we can. And a lot of times that's not the smartest way to do it. I hear you. Like, there could be a point where we're going to look at strength of schedule, and that's going to be the tiebreaker when we're determining the end of the playoffs. Or they could just look at win and loss record, which is what they typically do. And again, the part I'd push back on is, you're right. A lot of the national championship teams have had a tough out-of-conference game. A lot of those teams are also Alabama, Texas,
right,
Georgia, LSU. Teams that can schedule a tough out-of-conference game. If you're Indiana, you're not those teams, right? You're trying to get yourself to the playoffs, and I think he knows. I think they know they don't have the depth of those elite teams, so why get themselves potentially beat up? Why get themselves knocked out of the conversation early? Because they're not in Texas. They're not in Alabama. They're trying to get to the playoffs, and if they get there with a week out-of-conference schedule, is anybody going to care? I don't think so, right?
I mean, I would say, like, tough opponent. How about just a Power 4 opponent? You don't have to put Alabama on your schedule. You want to cancel an Alabama game to put on Virginia, fine. You're going to cancel Virginia to put on McNeese State or whatever it was? Stop it. Like, come on. Like, someone said that earlier. It's Virginia. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, let's be honest here. Have the balls to play one Power 4 opponent. That's all I'm going to say. I can't get on board with it. I just can't. But I hear your argument. I think it's very fair for people to have that. I
think that's fair too. I also think that's fair. Yeah.
It's a good discussion point. I think it's definitely kind of, there was they went hard. They leaned into it. They didn't care. They don't care what anyone said. They're like, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. And we don't care what you think. I give them credit for that. I will say that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I actually kind of love that. Like, if you're going to do it, lean into it.
Yeah.
Like, don't skirt it. Like, most people hate Signetti, and we have Coach Mack in here who's basically talking about how much that guy's a tool or whatever. I actually kind of like him. Yeah, here you go, Coach Max. Signetti's a tool bag who just needs to win to boost his ego. Google it. So I actually kind of like a coach. If you're at an Indiana, you kind of need a coach who's a little like Brett Bielema, young Brett Bielema, or even now Brett Bielema, who's just going to say what he wants to say. Because part of it is marketing, and part of it is trying to elevate your program and put it in the limelight. My point is, you can't have a meek person if you're going to be at Indiana or Purdue or Northwestern or Rutgers or Maryland, right? You kind of need a Signetti. You kind of need a tool bag. I don't know. I kind of like it. And I bet you he's one of those coaches that if he was your coach, you would like him a lot more than you do now because he's not your coach.
I mean, yeah, like Brett Bielema would have never canceled that game. I'll put it that way. Let me ask this, and gosh, maybe it's Coach Mack. You can provide your input on this. Like, what does that do for your players? What does it do? Like, what message are they hearing? Because people are sending them text messages saying, really? Like, this is what your program does. Like, this is what you want to be. Like, what message does that send to your best players? Like, yeah, we're not going to put any Power 4 teams for you. We know you need to play easier teams. Like, there is that element of it. And I don't know what that impact is. I've certainly never played that level of football. I would like to know from someone, like, what does that really do for them? What do you think it does for them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Listen, I guarantee you, a football roster is diverse, right? It's like a community. There's 100 people on that roster. It's not going to do the same for every player. Like some players probably will look at it, Rajiv, like to your point, and they'll say, I don't need a soft way. But I bet you, Rajiv, if they make the playoffs, do you think any players are going to complain? Like, do you think any players, it's almost like if anyone watches Game of Thrones, there's a scene in Game of Thrones where, they're like, Cersei's evil. And, Jamie says, well, does it matter how she got there if she accomplishes the goal? Is if I have two roads, right? I'm trying to get to the same spot. I'm not going to take the road that has potholes. I'm going to take the one that's clean and paved, and I'm going to get there quicker than you. So I hear you, and I do think it's a fair point. I think some players probably will look at it and say, I don't need the easier road. But if they make the playoffs, are any of them going to complain at the end? I don't think so.
I think we've seen Indiana's last time in the playoffs. I think we was their first and last, and I don't think we're going to see them again. And I think this is going to be part of it.
Well, I'll say this. I'm down for that. That is a spot you and I can agree on. Like that program has become so uppity and so full of themselves. You and I can absolutely agree on that. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to zoom out, look back at the offseason that was. What are the three biggest storylines that led up to this year's Media Day? We're doing that next on Locked On Badgers. Really appreciate everybody tuning in as always. And I always appreciate my guy, Rajiv, who is honestly he's a better human being than he is a podcaster, and he's a great podcaster. So I'll just throw that out there. Let's zoom out. So the offseason's kind of over. Right. This is Media Days is kind of the start. Practice is going to be starting up soon. Media Days is kind of over. What are the three biggest storylines from this past offseason? I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, for me, it's the number one on the list really is the, trying to reclaiming Wisconsin's identity. I mean, I think that's the number one thing you heard coming out of the offseason, coming out of the end of the season. We've got to get bigger. We've got to get stronger. We've got to stop the run. All things that fans have been saying the entire time so far, like it needs to happen. We've got to run the ball. We've got it. That the offense was a disaster. Like all these things, I feel like that's the number one story is Wisconsin was successful doing this for a long time. We changed it. We're down here. We need to get back to a little bit of that. We need to use the strengths of our programs. We need to build upon good foundations. And that to me is the number one overall storyline is we're going to get back to doing some things. We have to get bigger on one side of the ball. And we have to be able to run the ball effectively on the other side.
Yeah, I'm gonna segue off of that, but similarly, I think it's Grimes. I think Grimes is the biggest offseason storyline. And I wanted to kick this to you because I was thinking about this. A lot has been put on Longo. A lot of the failure at the offense, the quarterback spot, a lot of the issues we've had, the lack of complementary football, a lot of it's in place at the feet of Longo. And I almost wonder if too much pressure is being put on Grimes in a way, but I think that is the biggest storyline to be. We are bringing in somebody back, to your point, reestablish who Wisconsin is, and that person is Coach Jeff Grimes, and he has to work. He doesn't have to be a star. He doesn't have to be an incredible offensive coordinator, but Rajiv, he has to work because a lot of the underpinnings for failure have been placed on Longo. So if you switch out the OC now and you remove what a lot of people consider the biggest issue and Grimes doesn't work or this offense still doesn't work, you might be out of answers. And I think that's why that's the biggest offseason kind of storyline.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we all have high expectations for Grimes, and I think you're 100% right about this. Like he really has to be that guy. Because listen, you're right. If he doesn't work, Fickell, that's probably Fickell's last hire, right? If it doesn't work, and it is what it is. So I do think I think it's gonna work. I think that I feel like he's just looks like he's built a little differently, and maybe that's just like seeing things I want to see. I just feel like he's got the sort of like, okay, I'm fine. Like I got this. I work a certain way. I need a certain type of a player. I've got this roster. As Justin has pointed out many times, this is the best group of talent he's really going to play with. And I feel like as far as like recently, certainly. And I think that, yeah, like he's gonna shine hopefully. And so it is certainly one of those top stories though.
My next one, and I think you might have lumped these in together, but it's the size on the front seven. Yeah. To me, it's a very obvious recognition that we were too small last year, period. We didn't have enough 310-pound guys, period. So let's go get 5 of them because that's basically what they did this offseason. Let's go get Perkins, and let's go get Garner. Let's go get Walker, and let's go get Parker Peterson, and let's buff up Daryl Peterson bigger. Let's get Barton bigger. Like it's size on the front seven, and they went all in on it. Now, we'll see how it works. I think it's going to be better. I think they're deeper. I think they're stronger. I think they're more physical. But, yeah, they got a lot bigger, man. And I think, to me, that's something that absolutely stood out.
Yeah, totally. Nothing really more to add on that. My second one is really, how one injury can drastically affect the way we've looked at the offensive line. I mean, Kevin Haywood is one of those guys that obviously we all know he's going to be playing on Sunday. Like, this guy is awesome. But that injury affects everything, right? I mean, all of a sudden you're like, okay, wait, now we're going to do left tackle, which is the most important position on the offensive line. And do you put Brunner there? Now you got Heinz in. Now is that weak in that position? And now all of a sudden there's a depth issue. And you just kind of look back, you look down and you're like, ooh, this was almost a strength. And now it's a question mark because one guy went down who's a sophomore, a true sophomore. So that to me was a big storyline. And I think every conversation we've had about like outlook to 2025, the offensive line comes up and the Haywood injury comes up. It's not going to go away.
That's a great one. I didn't have that on my list, but I think I should have, because that really, not to the level of like Lee Evans getting hurt in the spring game, but that really changed the narrative, right? Like, you lost one of the promising stars in a spot that you couldn't lose a guy. That's a great one. Yeah, that's a really, really good one. My third one was actually kind of what El Mills hit on, was a quarterback. I think quarterback's always a huge storyline. Is Billy Edwards the guy? Like, you've gone to the portal 3 times. Now, fair or not, 2 of them have gotten hurt at some point, but fair or not, when they were healthy, neither of them exactly looked like they were elevating the offense. How much of that was Longo? How much of that was them? Like, you can never really untangle that. But yeah, is Edwards the guy? Did they finally get that player at quarterback that can bring at least the floor up a noticeable amount? To me, I think that's a big storyline here.
Yeah, it's not one of the ones I had written down, but that is a great one. That's one I should have probably had on mine. I mean, I think that you always look at the quarterback situation and there's just so much excitement from Braden Locke the last couple of years to Billy Edwards, and a guy that's done it in the Big Ten and a guy that's mobile and he can make the throws, and he seems to have this sort of like swagger about him which by the way is one of the key things I'm going to be looking for tomorrow. Is I want to see some of that swagger from him, because I think he has it, and I'm excited to talk to him about it. My third one, and it kind of segues into something else we might touch on a little bit, is the schedule. I feel like people are just Phil Steele has us as the toughest schedule in the country. Most publications will have Wisconsin listed in the top 2 to 3 toughest schedules in America. That sucks, man. And I just think that's been talked about a lot. And here we are as a program trying to climb out of this hole, and we have this ridiculous schedule in front of us. And you're like, boy, we really need to have a good year, but can we have a good year? And I know that if you saw what kind of the comments that Joel Klatt made, which we might touch on. That to me is a big storyline. And I wish it wasn't, but it kind of is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it does dovetail into what we're about to talk about. I want to mention Coach Max says wildcard storyline, promoting Kenny Guyton. Edwards should bail him out with experience, but what if an injury happens? Then you have a younger quarterback, inexperienced quarterback with an inexperienced quarterback's coach. It's a valid point to bring up. It's not Kenny Guyton. I think we both agree is well-spoken. I think he connects really well with players. He played quarterback in college, but he's not the most experienced quarterback's coach if you had to deal with an injury in the middle of the season. I think it's a fair concern.
I think it's one of the reasons you went out and got a Danny O'Neil. You had to go out and get someone. Like we all have talked about how the backup quarterback now, like, we're pretty comfortable too deep. Not saying we want anything to happen again, but we have that comfort level more so than we've had the last 2 years. And I think that this is one of the reasons why, but it's a really good point by Coach.
Let's talk about that schedule, and let's talk about, you mentioned one of your big storylines. Joel Klatt talked a lot about, hey, I think this team is better. Joel Klatt made a very clear point of he thinks Fickell's a good coach, and he thinks this Wisconsin team is better. He also said, y'all might not win 5 games because the schedule's too daunting. What if we win 5 games? What if we win 4 games, but we do look better? How does the fan base deal with that? How does the Badgers administrations deal with that? What happens?
God, it's really something I don't want to think about. But I mean, again, I think it really matters how we play and what we look like. And so let's say, okay, so in this scenario, it does happen. We win 5 games. Like, how did we look against, number one, our rivals, like Minnesota? Did we beat Minnesota? Are they one of those 5 wins? Did we have a much better showing against Iowa? Where did the losses come and how did they come? Like, this team can get better offensively. We can run the ball. We can be in the games where we can have a defense that doesn't look porous at times. We can have a defense that doesn't allow Iowa to run, 100,000 straight times up the middle. Like, we can do better. And if we are better, I think that in the end, you'll be able to look back and recognize that we looked like we were actually playing good football. and we can look ahead to a much better schedule in the future. But yeah, I mean, it's something I really don't want to see, but I really do think as Badger fans and everyone listening to this, you're going to know it. We're going to know it when we see it, that we need to make improvements.
Matthew Anderson says, another losing season and we were having some come to Jesus moments. I like to believe what you're saying, Rajiv, that we will know when we see it. I think a lot of people just look at win and loss record. And I think if you look better but still only win 5 games, and you take a program that didn't go to a bowl game last year and didn't go again this year, I think the tough schedule thing is going to fall flat. I don't think there's a narrative of, but we played better. Essentially, moral wins to some degree that is going to satiate most people in that scenario. I think you got to get to 6 wins.
I mean, I think for the most part, that's true, because if you are better, you're probably not going 5-7, because like the schedule is tough, but the schedule also has winnable games. Like we should 100,000% be 3-1 after the first 4 games. Like that's already 3. And we're not that worried. If we're not 3-1 after the first 4 games, we have a big problem. So like at that point, you have Washington on your schedule, you have Minnesota on your schedule, you've got Indiana and Illinois, and I'm not saying those teams aren't improved, they are good, but there are games that we should win if we are better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like if you're better, you're winning 6 games. And by the way, Rajiv, if they're 2-2 after those first 4,
oh God,
you and I are starting a new podcast.
Dude, I'm literally gonna. I don't know what I will do.
You and I are gonna start like a Colts podcast, and I'll just come aboard with you. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, Colts Niners talk.
Yeah, that'll do well. Anyway, like Rajiv, man, appreciate you jumping on. Tell people what you got going on tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be at Big Time Media Days. Go check out the Bucky Report. Nick Osen's gonna be there. We're gonna be doing a show right after the player interviews and the coach interviews, probably in the late afternoon. We'll get that posted up. It'll be fun. Just kind of quick reactions. Again, some of those things I'm looking for the players, like the swagger and the way they're talking and kind of the excitement level they have and the passion that I'm feeling. So I'm going to definitely talk about that, and really, really excited to get the opportunity to cover Big Ten Media Days.
You deserve it, man. Definitely excited to see what happens there. I might try to get you on again later in the week to talk about your reaction
For sure.
here. But yeah, go check out what obviously Rajiv and Justin as well are doing. Again, good people are worth supporting, and Rajiv, for as good of a podcaster as he is, I've said it, is a better person. So go check out what they're doing tomorrow on Wisconsin. Thank you, everybody, for jumping into a late Locked On Badgers, but really do appreciate you always. If you're watching live or if you're going to catch it tomorrow, thank you so much as always for helping build this community. Y'all are incredible, and we will definitely talk mañana. Later.